move into our agenda, and I will move this particular item, and it'll be seconded by Councillor Hills. And it's about the Community Facilities Regional Work Programme 2020 to 2023. Can I just, firstly, before I hand it over to Rob, to introduce his colleague and also those are online for this agenda item, just to sort of reiterate that this particular item and the PowerPoint was presented in June to the Finance and Performance Committee workshop in regards to the emergency budget. So we have been presented with this. Also, as background, before I hand it over to Rob, the budget for community facilities ended up from 235 million to 98 million, so the reduction was 137 million. This particular item that we have in front of us, the $44 million reduction in this particular agenda item is included in the $137 million. So Rob, if you could introduce the lovely lady to your left and also those that are online. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so here with me today in the room is Catherine Martin. She's our Work Programme Manager for Community Facilities and has an overview of all our work programmes. Also online, some of the people involved in putting together the specifics. So we've got Jonathan Hope and Joseph Bywater, who are also part of our team, looking after the specifics of these work programmes. And some subject matter experts here in case there's any specific questions. We've got Shane Hogg and Paul Kleinak, who can respond to the coastal.
You already am.
And Ross Roberts, also from...
down by the front door, aren't they?
Sorry, whoever's got their phone still on, can you mute it, please? I've got the number 021-242-6585. If that's you, can you either mute it or, or go and do some shopping? Thanks. Rob, if you can carry on, that'd be great.
Thank you. So I wasn't going to go through the report in any detail, as the chair said. Hopefully, everyone's reasonably familiar with both the nature of these programs. They come to us all each year, and also familiar with the content of the programs from our workshop that we had in June. I did just want to highlight some of the impacts that we've had on the from the emergency budget, just to make sure we were familiar with what that means for this current work program. So as you know, all our CapEx budgets across the organisation were reduced as part of the emergency budget. Community facilities in particular took a substantial reduction in its CapEx budget, and that flowed through all our CapEx budgets. You'll recall we, in terms of prioritising where we allocated the budget that was available, our first priority was given to contractually committed works, and then our next priority was given to renewals of our existing assets. Now, as a result of that, most of our development budgets were quite significantly reduced, and those projects deferred, and that included our OLIs and our LDI CapEx and specific development projects, and also included the growth program, which is part of this report. So other programs that are covered in this report are the regional parks, growth and development. For that program, the renewals were slightly reduced and the development more significantly reduced. We've got the cemeteries renewals and development. Again, the rather modest cemetery renewals budget had a sort of 20% reduction, where the larger cemeteries development budget had a bigger reduction. That was at about 70%. And then coastal and slips budgets had fairly small reductions of about 35 to 40%. The most significant reduction across these programs was in the growth program, and that was a reduction of around 70%, I think. I did have some charts that were going to illustrate that, but there's a technical hitch to showing them, so we'll have to progress without the visuals. Just in terms of how we prioritised what remained in the program, as I said, the first priority was to the contractually committed work. Following that, we made an assessment of asset condition and the criticality of that asset, and a bit of an assessment of what was the risk of failure of that asset, just to make sure that, especially with regard to any public safety issues, but also with regard to service impact. And then we looked also at deferral, the implications of any deferrals, and a lot of our projects have got are related to other initiatives that are happening, whether it's Kaingora developments or other parts of council undertaking developments. So some of our investments associated with other works, and they were prioritised where that was the case. The last thing I just want to mention is we have got 3-year budgets that we're approving here. At the moment, years 2 and 3, that's financial years 22 and 23, the budget provisions are based on what was in the 2018 LTP. So that may well change, and we expect it to change in the LTP coming up. So what you see as years 2 and 3 at the moment will be subject to whatever decisions are made around the budgets for those years in the LTP coming up. So that was really all I was going to say by way of context and background, but very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Catherine, anything from you? Okay. Look, I'm just going to open it up. I've got a question from Councillor Simpson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Oh, look, I think the last statement actually was typing the word question may have been answered. So I'm very happy, obviously, with the emergency budget funding allocations because we know what they are. But the next 2 years that are mentioned in these reports are still to be finalised as part of this LTP. Is that correct? I'm just making sure that that's correct.
That's absolutely correct. As I said, what we used for the sake of having a number was the budget allocation from the
current LTP.
Yeah, from the 2018 LTP. So we anticipate they will change to some extent.
Yeah, okay, got that. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dursley. Matua Wilcox.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My one question is, in all of this, and I understand it's really been hard back, is where is the provision for the implementation of the Māori Language Plan 2016? And I'm talking about signage here. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to that corridor. I don't see nothing about signage because it's either an OPEX or a CAPEX.
So there is, there's two things there, I think, Member Wilcox. One is the Turukuruku program, which there is a separate budget outside of the budgets that are shown in this program, and that will that's budget is held by Park Sport and Recreation Department, and they work very closely with community facilities in terms of how that's rolled out when the opportunity arises. In addition, where we are undertaking any signage renewals or park upgrades or facilities upgrades, where the opportunity again lies for those renewals to incorporate whether it's dual bilingual signage or renaming of parks, then we take that opportunity as well as part of business as usual.
Just a further question to that, Chair.
Aye.
Yeah, so my question is, why aren't we doing the replacement of signage now with bilingual signage? We've had this plan since 2016. I understand that signage is kind of an ad hoc process, but I've kind of got to the bottom of who organises the signs, and it seems to be project managers on whichever job's going. but I don't understand why this implementation of this Maori language plan isn't occurring as part of normal OPEX or normal CAPEX. And so I'm just kind of trying to get some hold on this, because I'm not happy to approve a plan like this. I know the budget is really tight, but I just want some security and understanding that no new signs will go up whatsoever unless they're bilingual. That was the council's response to the Maori Language Act 2016. So our Maori implementation plan has specific rules around having bilingual signage. So I just want to dig that out and get some insurance today. And I preface that with the fact that actually this is going to cost us no more or no less. So it's actually not a budget issue, to be honest.
So where signage is being replaced through the local board work programs, the question of bilingual is looked at by the staff, and that content gets approved by the local boards. So my understanding of the program is, while many of the local boards have signed up to the bilingual approach to signage, that's not universal across all local boards. So where the boards have signed up, that is happening, and where they haven't, it may not be.
So, Chair, look, I'm gonna hammer this point. The decision as to whether the local boards sign up to bilingual or signage or not, it's really a moot point. It's one of these and any other act that every local body official agrees to when they say the oath to become part of the Auckland Council. So I'm really struggling to understand why any local board is refusing to follow an implementation plan and an act that's put forward that's put out by the government. So
just to let you know, I think Jane Aiken was also shared that at our PACE committee, and that's something that needs to be addressed with the local boards. So that's been taken on board, Matua, and I think in regards to any correspondence going out, that's exactly where it would be, and I will personally contact Jane in regards to the program around renaming.
It's not about renaming, it's just about replacement of signs, that's all.
No, I understand that, but we have the regional project, but then the local boards have the decision-making in regards to that, and those issues were addressed when it came through to the PACE committee last month, I think it was.
Thank you.
Councillor Hills, there's a comment in there if you want to...
Oh no, it was just adding to that. I think I said it last year when I think there are more local boards who have signed up this term, but last term there was only 11, and I said that for our treaty obligations and doing what's right for the whole city, we should have a regional approach if those other 10 local boards don't want to come on board. But I have heard that it's up to 15 now, which is a good progress. But I think that our treaty obligations aren't optional, and it's for those communities that aren't celebrated across our city, that's wrong. So, yeah.
No, look, with that, and that was addressed when it came through to the PACE committee, so understand your point. Councillor Henderson, did you also want to, or have it on the sidebar there, was that sufficient for you? Okay, then I've just got another sidebar comment from Councillor Henderson, just saying, look, I will ensure that it gets brought back to the attention of the Māori Outcomes group in regard to this, and I'll get a memo from Fire Jane to send out to the PACE committee to at least give an update on how many local boards have accepted the process. So if there's no further questions or comments, Councillor Coombe.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for the work on all this work on the program. I just had a question about the climate impact statement. So I've just got to find it again. At paragraph 76. And that looks like a good list of things to be considered, but I just wondered where in the process has there been a lens, climate lens, gone over the program to consider whether there might be projects that we just wouldn't even do anymore or do quite differently? And are there any examples of that? And I guess I'm just thinking of, say, of a local board example where the Waitemata local board have decided not to do a trial of not mowing, which potentially saves money and has environmental benefits. So has there been kind of a lens like that put over the work program?
I would say on a project by project basis, as part of the delivery framework which we follow through, which is strategic assessment, business case. So that's where the view of the climate, any climate impact and mitigations is done at that project level. I don't think we could say hand on heart that we've looked across the program and taken a climate impact view of at a program level. It's project by project at this time.
So that might be something that we need to, as an organisation, be thinking about how we look at all of our activities.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. As we get our maturing our understanding of climate, how we respond to the climate challenge, we should be looking at a program level of that. I mean, certainly a lot of the program is quite directly around the impacts of climate. You know, our coastal program and our SLIPS program is all quite specifically around mitigating or managing the impacts of a changing climate. But certainly, I think there's scope for looking at the wider programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think it's probably a more strategic discussion that we need to be having in the same way, you know, like in terms of post-COVID, climate crisis, you know, it's a whole new way of thinking that we need to bring to all of our activities. So I totally appreciate, you know, that we can't just be expected to pivot all of a sudden, but I'd just like there to be a conversation going forward, if that's possible.
No issue at all. No problems.
Thank you, Matua.
I've got a question. Sorry.
So, Councillor, thank you for your comment. It's actually also something that's now in discussion as part of the LTP process. That may give us an opportunity to look at that portfolio lens from a climate change impact as well.
Thank you, Claudia. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to ascertain in my own mind what these risk-adjusted programs mean in reality. So I'm looking at a couple that I'm aware of that have been on the books for a number of years, quite vital pieces of infrastructure in terms of accessing beaches and things like that. So am I right, Robin, in assuming that they're projects that have got their timetable and various stages identified here, but if there's a shortage or if there's a failure to deliver other projects, they will get bumped up the list. Is that the basic reading of it? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And the intention is we would look to start those risk-adjusted projects and take them through to a sensible hold point. And as you say, if other projects that were anticipated to be done this financial year for any reason get delayed or held up, typically, you know, in planning consent or something like that, we've got a project ready to go that can just fill in that place and fully spend the budget. So some of those risk-adjusted programs may get delivered earlier if some other projects are delayed.
Okay, so just a follow-up question then. In terms of
advancing them to the stage where where the construction can actually occur. What's the situation where where that has already occurred then? So like investigation, designs, conceivably consenting, or if they're ready, if they're to that point, then they're ready to go to construction. So I guess my concern is that with a number of them, that then they just go into another further holding pattern, and it's like the never never. So is there some sort of overview of specific projects that really gives a little bit of comfort to the belief that, and I'm thinking of the community here where there's perhaps been ongoing inquiries for years in terms of their preparedness to go. So if they have jumped through those pre-hoops, then is the next stage construction as opposed to just another holding period. I mean, I know that the sum total of the project will come into that consideration too, obviously.
Yes, I think your last point is the important one. So as you move into physical works, that's when the big spend on these projects generally happens. So, and the other consideration is, particularly this year, we have a very tight constraint on not overspending the CapEx budget available. So before we push go on physical works, which will commit us to a big spend on a project in advance of the year that the budget's allocated, we need to understand what other project isn't going to be delivered in that financial year, and be comfortable that because we're doing something early, something else has to be deferred, and we're comfortable with the thing that's being deferred isn't going to cause a problem or other challenges. So we constantly monitor that situation in each of the areas, and make those decisions month by month, depending on what's going on across the different projects and the different programs.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Thanks, John. Got the last question or comment from Councillor Hills, and I will put the recommendation.
Yeah, I guess it was following on from Councillor Watson's comments, just how that, confirming what we've got in the list here is sort of gets done. It just is how we tell the local boards and how we get out there to the public of what is actually delayed and what we can, get started, especially in some of the coastal projects that have been waiting a while.
So you may recall for some of these programs, coastal being one, and the SLIPs and the growth program, those projects, once you've approved them, they go into the local board programs and become local board decision making around the details. And so the local board is updated by our area teams on a monthly basis alongside all their other projects about projects of those ones. In terms of then getting that message to communities and keeping communities updated, that's generally done through those local area teams and local boards. And I guess it's fair to say in a range of different mechanisms for doing that, whether it's consultation or newsletters or other social media updates. But that's generally via the local board comms team rather than any kind of central overview.
Cool. So the allotted amounts year by year in here, is it probably best for me to come to you on specific ones? Because how different could they be from this? Is it just 1 year that things might be pushed out, or we're trying to do as much as we can in the current timetable? The coastal one's not that far off budget.
So what we think this financial year, what's in this financial year, because we've had to go through that quite rigorous process of reducing and refining, what's in the current program is what we think is deliverable. We're confident that's deliverable, so we don't anticipate a lot of change from what's in the program you're approving. we are obviously aware that things come up and things do change, and so there may well be some shifts across. But in essence, those projects will progress as fast as they can. And if there's a delay, they might get delayed because of that, but then to happen as soon as possible once the delay is resolved.
Perfect, thank you.
Now, look, I'm just going to put the recommendation. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Rob. Catherine.